If you think you need £3 worth of gaming PC with the latest RTX 5090 to play games, this ain't the channel for you. If you think budget means pony, this ain't the channel for you. But if you want to turn e-waste into capable gaming rigs for pocket change, you're in the right place. Let's have it. Welcome back to Piggybank PC for part 2 of the HP Z440 workstation build. Today we're going to benchmark 3 budget GPUs from 2 frames a second all the way up to 190 frames per second. These budget GPUs can be snatched up for under 50 quid. We'll see what games you can play in 1080p and 1440p. I was surprised at what we could get, plus we're going to find out how many tokens per second we can get on a 7 billion parameter LLM. So the cost breakdown so far for this Z440 workstation: £68.80 for the workstation itself. We put a 1TB SSD in there that cost me £41.79. So the total spend so far is £110.59 including postage and packaging. This is the GPU that came in the Z440. It's a GT240. I couldn't get the drivers to work on it, and that's probably why we had 2 frames a second at 720p, but that's a dead loss. We're not going to use this. Instead we're going to use this Quadro K1200. I got it a few months back for a bargain of £25.50. It's meant for a workstation, so I thought it'd be fitting that I use this card first. I'm pretty surprised at its performance considering it's not meant for gaming. This would bring the budget of this build to £136. This is the standard benchmarking in GTA 5 Legacy. As you can see, it's only 24, nearly 25 frames per second. It did alright. I'm not going to play it in the game, and 25 frames per second is a bit tedious, so although it did surprise me it being 1440p in high settings, 25 FPS is not too shabby. It'd probably be alright in 1080p, probably about 60 frames per second, but I want to keep my benchmarks to sort of modern standard, and 1440p is sort of the minimum really. So I run it in a standard benchmark in Cyberpunk 2077. It really did struggle here, but this is a very demanding game on GPUs, so it was to be expected. 5 frames a second is definitely not playable, so I didn't even bother playing it in the game. It would just probably crash or something like that. So the next GPU I'm going to try was the Palette Super Jetstream GTX 1060 6GB version. I had one lying around, but as you can see on screen, you can get them for about 42 to about 60 quid. So I'm going to say it's 50 quid, sort of in the middle. They do seem to be going up in price. This does take it over the £150 budget by £10. So this is GTA Legacy again in 1440p in the standard benchmark. As you can see, we're getting a very nice 75 frames per second to lows of 55. It's pretty stable, which is pretty good for this graphics card, being that it's like nearly 10 years old. And for price point it is excellent, like 50 quid, you can't argue with that. If you're running an older 60Hz monitor, you wouldn't really notice a difference. It's nice and smooth, there's no juddering, it's pretty playable to be honest. So here you can see that we got it on a 1440 and we've got suggested limits off. It is in high settings. So we're now benchmarking in GTA 5 Enhanced. This is a bit more of a demanding game on the GPU. We're getting a quite respectable 50 frames a second at highs, and lows I didn't really see it go below 40, but it's quite good really for this kind of demanding game. It is playable at this frame rate, but it's not the best to be honest. So if I was you and you had this GPU, I would just use the Legacy version, as it is more playable in that, and you're not really missing much in the visuals. But if you don't mind a little bit of judder, I'll show you the gameplay in this next scene. As you can see here, it's not juddery or anything like that. It might be a different story in playing online, but in this single player mode it is perfectly fine, to be honest. So I had to test this GPU in Cyberpunk 2077, as this is a new game and it's very demanding. I was quite surprised that 22 to 26 frames per second is excellent really for a GPU of this age and price point. So here we are, a bit of gameplay just to show you that 27 frames per second, what you get. It is a bit juddery, and yeah, you do get a bit disorientated when you're trying to spin round and stuff. It kind of freezes. It's a bit all over the place. Not the best really for playing. I'm not the greatest at shooting games. I used to play them a lot when I was younger. I don't really get time for it anymore, so I just thought I'd just have a little go, so I could show you how well the game plays, or not in this case. So I thought I'd give Doom Eternal a bit of a spin. We're getting a nice steady 60 frames a second, which is pretty good really. The GPU's at about 95%, which is really good, to be honest. As you can see in the HUD at the top, the CPU sitting about 50%. It's just comfortable. The CPU is about 55 degrees, the GPU is 94%, and it's sitting comfortably within its 6GB of VRAM. Yeah, it's actually doing quite well. There's no bottlenecks. I just noticed at the top in the right hand corner, this is footage of when I was benchmarking it with 64GB of RAM. So this is got 4 channels of RAM actually being used, and it looks like it done quite well. I have been building a benchmark suite for testing in Linux and Ubuntu. Here you can see the Quadro K1200 benchmark at 1080p high settings. This benchmark suite does do testing of tokens per second with a 7 billion parameter LLM. You can see in this here the score got 5.04 tokens per second with the Quadro 1200. That's on the GPU. The CPU was 4.12, so the GPU is basically 1.2 times faster than the CPU. Here we have the Piggybank PC benchmark score in 1080p high. So the tokens per second on the GTX 1060 6GB version, on the GPU we got 14.43 tokens per second, which is pretty good for an old card, and that was 3.43 times faster than the CPU. Here we have the Piggybank PC benchmark score in 1080 Ultra, and here we have the Piggybank PC benchmark score in 1440 Ultra high settings. So here it is, the Piggybank PC leaderboard for the benchmarking suite. I've been working on it for the last few weeks, and the reason I didn't release my video last week, I was too busy debugging this and having to retest all of the GPUs. But eventually I will be releasing this, so you can download the benchmark suite and benchmark your own PC or build or whatever you're up to, as long as it's Linux based. When you've submitted it, it will automatically go onto the leaderboard and see how you rank, whether you're better than my PCs or anybody else in the communities. So this is the community corner where I respond to comments. So I'd like to thank SK Antiques for his comment. It gives me a little bit of wind in my sails, help me keep going. Thank you very much, mate. And thank you for your comment too, Slide Dog 5102. I will try different angles when I'm doing GPU repairs in the future, so thank you very much, mate. Join this community of awesome people by hitting subscribe and commenting. I've got quite a few GPUs on hand, but if there's any in particular you want me to test test on my benchmark suite, let me know in the comments, and let me know of any games you want me to test these on.